We've got an official tease for the second season of Masters of the Universe Revelation, now called Revolution, and we have a story synopsis from Bleeding Cool, which might have been exciting if they hadn't killed all the goodwill in season 1. The first season looked pretty promising with the trailers and lead up to the release. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a bait and switch. The show was advertised as He-Man vs. Skeletor, the ultimate battle, only to kill both of them off in the first episode. And the show was actually following Teela and the fallout from He-Man's death. I have no idea why they didn't just tell us that up front. Guess they wanted to subvert expectations. Basically, they treated the actual plot of season 1 as if it was a spoiler, when it should have been the hook. Instead, they used the He-Man vs. Skeletor as the hook, when in reality the show was not about that. I guess it eventually got to that, but not even in part 1, since the original season was split into 2 parts and we had to wait months in between. That's just not an effective way to market a show, and then they were surprised when people got upset by this. That's what happens when you hide the plot. They also made Teela extremely bitter and kind of hard to root for. I can understand her being upset for obvious reasons, but not to the extreme they made her go to.
I died!
Yeah, and the rest of us had to live with it.
Teela's a great character, but they totally misrepresented her in this show. If they wanted her to be the main character, they could have at least kept her in character. She's not a bitter and spiteful person. This is just too much. According to the synopsis, they're still doing the technology versus magic thing, which is a little disappointing since I think a major charm of the original is the fact that they're able to combine science fiction tropes and fantasy tropes. Why do they have to pit them against each other like this? They're also going to be facing Skeletor and the invading Horde army. I wonder if they'll ever figure out the rights for She-Ra, although I do worry how they would handle Adora's character. They tried to market the original season as a fun and campy throwback to the 80s. I mean, one of the trailers literally had Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero. Only for it to end up being a super edgy show that relied too heavily on shock value, which wouldn't have been as much of a problem if they had just been honest about that to begin with. I think most He-Man fans would have preferred an 80s throwback, but at least we wouldn't have had the rug pulled out from under us. As for the teaser, it shows He-Man and his father, King Randor, in Subternia. They seem to be on very good terms, with Randor openly calling him Adam, and they're joking around a lot. It seems like they don't see Subternia as much of a threat. I'm immediately skeptical though. The marketing for season 1 also had a lot of seemingly fun scenes that featured He-Man, only for most of those scenes to turn out to just be flashbacks without having any kind of real impact on the show itself, and not actually gelling with the vibe season 1 was going for. While this isn't a flashback, I still think it's possible there's some sort of funny business going on. It'll probably still be edgy and subversive, and I just wish they would be straightforward with what the show actually is. There was an extended version of this clip shown in SDCC this year, which featured multiple cameos, and while it is fun to see them, something about it feels a little disingenuous. It's like how episode 10 was called Comes With Everything You See Here, which came off as more cynical than tongue-in-cheek, and now it kind of feels like they're just parading these characters for fan service. It's pretty obvious that Randor is going to get killed off. The poster seems to imply this, with his crown on the ground and the sword of power lying beneath it. And there's an action figure made as merchandise that seems to portray an undead King Randor. He'll probably be killed off dramatically, maybe after a lighthearted quip to really drive home how shocking it is. I'm not really sure if I want to see more of that after season 1 drove it into the ground, with characters being dramatically killed off left and right. It's possible this could be the fun 80s throwback we've been waiting for, but we've all been burned before with this team, so hopefully they learn their lesson, but they might double down and just keep doing what they've been doing. Anyway, Randor appears to be wearing what is essentially the Hulkbuster armor from Marvel. I think they could have been a little more unique with that design, but I guess it's cool to see Randor fighting side by side with He-Man. Hopefully they won't ruin it with some kind of edgy twist. They're fighting Scareglow, who seems to be using Clampchamp and Fisto's weapons, so maybe they're in Subternia trying to get their souls back. In the last season, they were introduced only to be killed off 2 minutes later, and Skeletor crushed their souls, so that way they couldn't get into Preternia.
I just damned them both to Subternia instead.
It's very edgy. So it's a pretty big tonal whiplash for the two of them to just be bantering their way through what is this world's version of hell, and too reminiscent of the marketing decisions for the first season, so I'm getting deja vu, and it just feels like they're setting up the rug that's going to be pulled out from under us. And I'm not sure how many people want to go through that again, or if season 2 will be able to win anyone back. If they can get Clamp Champ and Fisto back, then does it really matter if the king dies? Couldn't they just get him back too? What are the stakes here exactly? I also feel like Scareglow went down too easily, so they're probably not showing us everything, which would be understandable because they don't want spoilers, except they treated the plot itself as a spoiler, which is not how you market a show. It just kind of feels like they were focusing more on shock value to the point where they weren't really thinking through the implications of what they were doing. I wonder if they can get Roboto back too, except he died in Preternia, and I'm not even sure how you can die in what is essentially heaven. And while they're at it, can they bring back Preternia? Evil-lyn destroying it was honestly ridiculous. I guess everyone who died in Preternia is just floating in the ether somewhere, or maybe just doesn't exist at all anymore. I just hope they learn from the mistakes of the previous season. I worry though that they don't recognize that these were mistakes. Take Evil-lyn for example. She did a lot of terrible things and then faced no consequences for them, and didn't even try to repair them, but she still gets a happy ending. The villain redeemed is one of my favorite tropes, but they didn't actually give her a redemption arc, so it felt totally flat. Sometimes writers act like if a character suffers a lot, it's justified for them to cause harm, but it's really not. It might explain their actions, but it doesn't justify them. And just because a character feels sorry about it, but does nothing to make up for it, doesn't mean they should get off scot-free. Season 2 definitely has its work cut out for it if it wants to fix the show, and I wonder how many people are even willing to return after what happened last season. I think there's a lot of trust issues there, but those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Is there anything you're looking forward to with Masters of the Universe Revolution, or are you burned out on the show? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia XV Legend, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Soundboy00, Owen Wildish, Kitsune Fiora, Lucas Geist, Data Dine Executive, Jay Draws, Blue Spirit, Bandito Bane, Meowsers, Sky, Jin KZ, Philip, Stutania, and Isaac Martinez. Thank you all so much for your support, we really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video and like our content, you can leave a like on the video and subscribe, and that part's free. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.